If you're into open world action RPG games, then you need to be checking out Ascenders. It's definitely one of the games at the top of our list here at Balthazar, and recently I got to sit down with Jackson, the CEO at Ascenders. This interview will provide you with additional information to the research that we've already put out, including things like what gameplay is going to look like, how land will work, and more. Well, welcome, Jack, to the Balthazar interview here. Thank you so much for taking the time here with me today. I want to start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what is your role with the Ascenders team?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me and giving me a bit of time to present Ascenders, our project, to the public and your audience. So I'm Jackson. I'm the CEO of Legendary Foundry Games. Our first game is Ascenders, and it's probably going to be our most ambitious one. It's an action RPG. It's kind of like Zelda-like with beats player-driven economy of EVE Online. That's the short pitch deck. What I do is I'm my background is I'm a lawyer by training. So not really a game developer, to be honest. But I played a lot of games growing up, and I enjoyed it a lot. So when I heard about the metaverse, I wanted to play a lot of the games that I was used to playing, like usual AAA games. But I didn't see any of that. I didn't see any builders building that. So it was really unfortunate. So I was waiting for the perfect deck to land, but there was no one was building it. So I felt that I had to go build it myself, and that's how we started Ascenders as a project. What I do in Ascender is essentially I'm kind of like I would treat myself as an external person, so I deal with investments, partnerships, and stuff like that, and I make sure that I focus on recruiting on a lot of experienced game dev, making sure that they have the resources they need to build the game that we want to build, and also doing quality control, making sure it's the game is crypto suitable for the audience, and that's I guess short glimpse of what I do. And yeah.
So how did you go from being a lawyer to now jumping into being the CEO of a gaming project? Because that seems like a pretty big career change there.
Yeah, it is pretty. A big career change. But I think what's been very revolutionary about crypto or Web3, it's global by nature, right? So if you have an opportunity, then you could go do it and give it your best shot, and that's I guess how you do it. I definitely have meet a lot of different people, and then you try to work with them and then see. I think what's underrated is that people understand is that whatever game or company you build, it's really just a recruiting exercise to align everyone for the same vision, and build something together. So I think that's the most important role as the lead, is to bring people together to build for a vision that people are interested in building.
Yeah, and it's really cool that crypto, as you said, is so global. It's giving everyone different opportunities and making a bunch of different career changes. I mean, that happened to me as well, and it's cool to hear that you've gone from this to now getting to have an opportunity to create such a cool game moving forward. And I'm curious, as you and the team have built out and you look at the NFT gaming industry, you've already mentioned it a little bit as you're talking about jumping into making this game, but I just want to hear your thoughts. As you look out to the NFT gaming industry, what are your thoughts? What's your evaluation? And what do you hope that Ascenders can bring to this space?
Yeah, I mean, we see a lot of browser games, and I think that's quite a natural part of it, because MetaMask, the plugins on the browser, so it's quite. And then a lot of the Web3 games right now are just reskinned versions of DeFi games. So that's one aspect of games. And then the better games are built independently. So Axie Infinity was built on Unity, from my knowledge at least. And then, back in the day, it felt like a deja vu back in, the 2000s. Revealing my age here a little bit, but I used to play all the Flash games. There's these web Flash websites that you play over the Stickman. There's this McDonald's farm game that you had to plant the patties, and then there's a little you deliver the burgers to the customers. I played all those kind of flash games, and yeah, but then none of them really stuck to me. I think the games that really struck my heart a bit was the games that were native to its kind of medium. So Game Boy is a very rudimentary kind of device, compared to devices we have now, even the phone. But like the storytelling, the nativeness of pressing the button and then having those cartilages and then shoving it inside the Game Boy was all very, very, very fun and very like engaging. So I think we're in the first phase where we're playing with a lot of these flash games and browsers, and then as we go along, I believe we'll see more games that are native to its medium, like natively. We see games from the App Store popping up or endorsing NFTs, and then we'll have also AAA games endorsing NFTs as well. Yeah.
So is it Ascenders? Is the goal like, hey, there's just not enough good games out there. There's not enough that kind of AAA quality that you mentioned before. We're seeing a lot of these very basic things come out right now, and Ascenders is going to provide that. Like, hey, this is the first game that maybe gamers that are like legit gamers, either Xbox, PC, or whatever they play on, that they can actually get excited about. Is that kind of the idea behind it?
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to get like the rest of the population excited about Web3 games when they're all browser games, in my opinion. Definitely, there could be very well-made games on browsers, but like, based on my preferences, I prefer the native approach. So, yeah, definitely, like, I felt that was missing in the space. But ultimately, we're building a AAA game because it's a kind of like a passion project for me, right? I mean, never built a game before, so I want to build the best, and it's something that I've definitely like pushed myself a bit too hard here because we're setting expectations to be a bit high, but that's ultimately my goal. I mean, it's not something that if it was for the cost of building this game, I could have built 5 different small games if we wanted to, and that would be way more profitable, to be honest. But yeah, I don't really believe in that. I believe in trying to build something you're proud of, 10 years looking back, 10, 20 years looking back. So that's the goal for Ascenders, building the most ambitious AAA game with a native web, like 3 kind of economy inside of it.
Yeah, I love that passion. I love that you're talking about, hey, let's create something good that we're proud of instead of just throwing out we've seen in this industry. I think a lot of people just rush things to the market consistently because there is a lot of money right now in people buying NFTs or tokens. And I'm kind of curious from the Ascenders point of view and the team, it seems like you guys haven't put those NFT sales out to the public or tokens yet. And I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts there. Is that a philosophical decision by the team? Like, this is, we want to wait, we want to be patient, we want to take our time. Is that just, hey, we're not there yet in development? What's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, I think we're just not there in development. I mean, straightforward. You could always take shortcuts in life. So we see even like today, we see some games buying some assets from the Epic Store, and selling them as NFTs. We see that both Pixelmon buying it from the Unity Store and selling it as NFTs. And there's nothing wrong with bought assets, to be honest, when game development. It's just that when you're selling that as an NFT, it's quite, it's kind of like not great, to be honest, not ethically great because people put a lot of money into it. So you really, really should be building kind of the best kind of NFTs out there. So part of the development cycle, so Web3 game development, I feel like it's really marketing first. So a lot of people are just like pushing out things you could market. And kind of rushing that aspect of it. Usually, like, for example, if you want to look at the profile picture collection, PFP collections, I mean, character design is usually much later in the game development process. Usually you kind of want to paint the picture of what the game generally looks like first, and then you go smaller and smaller details, and then finally you go to the characters, which is, yeah. So can in Web3, you kind of flip it by its head. You'd be like, let's release a character first and then see how it develops, right? So definitely a different kind of approach that we've taken from the market. But yeah, we kind of see like, I think one thing that's quite acceptable in Web3 is like to show the development side of the game out there, and I'm trying to push our game devs to show more out about what we're doing behind the scenes a little bit more. Obviously, some of our game developers are kind of like perfectionists, so they want to really wait. They really want to wait. It's perfect. It's like this is the final image you're gonna get before you're gonna sell anything. Um, but like I think what's acceptable is you start from low quality image, like a 2D image, and then you deliver a way better image, a way better final product. It's 3D and stuff like that. And Neon Heroes comes to mind. I mean, it blows me away. Their recent trailer of what they built compared to the first character 2D image, and that's really good. But the opposite is not acceptable, like which is Pixelmon. They promised the moon, and then it goes down. Like it's Kevin, like, and it looks kind of crap. And then you realize it was bought from the Unity store, and you're like, oh my god, like it's terrible. So yeah, that's basically a reason why we're just waiting. We're still in the development process, and we're getting that into. Once it's ready, we'll release it. And when we release it, it's original. It's built by us. It's native to the environment, and it's representative, hopefully representative of the final product. But yeah, I mean, there's still going to be some sort of development. There's always going to be some discrepancy because of R&D. But yeah, that's why we haven't rushed out for that yet.
Yeah, I love you taking your time and using that example of Pixelmon. I mean, I died laughing when I saw that release, and it's because I wasn't someone that was owning it. So I'm sure for those who are owning those types of things and paid big money, I mean that's got to be brutal, right? So I love that you're aiming for, hey, let's bring quality and even more quality. Like let's blow people away when it's fully released. And I think you guys have, as a team, have already showed that a little bit with the demo, right? Like your demo compared to what else you can even play with fully released games right now. Your demo is almost better than some of those fully released games out there. So I'm curious from your point of view, like what was the idea behind this gameplay demo, and then how is that going to compare to the actual game launch?
I kind of have the opinion that our target audience is gamers. So I mean, gamers, you could tell. And gamers could tell when it's a good gaming project or not, right? So by just playing the game, I think it's quite natural. Whereas, like if it's the DeFi protocol or something like that, you might not understand the math behind it. You don't understand the innovation between the codes a little bit. So sometimes you might rely on brand names of VCs out there to make a judgment on whether this is a good DeFi project to invest or not. Whereas games quite straightforward. I mean, you play the game, whether you like it or not, right? So in our opinion, like, we're game developers, so we build, so we want to build game first, and before we sell any NFTs and tokens, we wanted to showcase that we're a game studio, and there is a we're a game studio first, so that people know that when we promise to deliver something, we'll deliver something. I think that definitely it's a big contrast to what the market is used to. But yeah, people are used to like hype and whether they can make money or not and something like that. But I believe that like if we're building like in our opinion, like the top 0.1% of the projects out there for games, and I think power laws apply. I mean, partly the reason why we're not building 5 games, we're building 1 game is because, top 0.1% captures like 90% of the value of the market. I mean, you kind of see it with NFTs, Bored Apes, like all these, the larger blue chip NFTs really just take 90% of the market share, and the rest is like, doesn't take any market share at all. So, we believe in the moonshot approach, just build the best possible, and the players would come, and the returns would come, if we build something compelling. But yeah, of course, it's a game first, not a return first kind of game.
Yeah. So for those that have played the gameplay demo, I did a video on it, and I almost made the top 100. I was so close, and then I fell so short. But I'm curious, hype up your game a little bit. Like when this thing releases, how is this going to compare to the demo? Because the demo is really fun to compare to what's out there, right? But it's still, pretty simple. It's still pretty, hack and slash as far as the combat. We don't get a taste of the exploration or the building in this game. So how is the actual like gameplay going to look like when we launch?
Yeah, I mean, you make a really good point. So we made that game, mini game, in 2 months. It's a really short time period for a game development release. I mean, from idea to modeling to like getting it out there is quite a short period. So there's limited things we could do. So for example, the combat, we intended to do. We had a motion capture studio to do the motion capture. We actually have the motion capture footage as well. We never ever released it. We just didn't have enough time to incorporate that into the kind of the demo. But we will do so with the mini game, well, with the full game actually. So just to give you a context of how complicated things could be, like a sword animation. Like the little nice sword animation and sword swings that you see in our games, those are animated by a person wearing all the, these orbs thing and these cameras looking everywhere. It's like those motion capture suits. We will do those, and we'll have a motion capture suit with an actor and stuff like that. And the level of sophistication of animation is just way higher than, like, for example, a shooter game. It's just like you don't have to animate it. You just shoot, boom, 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 and it's like, at most is the recoil, which you could artificially create. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we wanted to do for the mini game, but we couldn't because of the scope and the time frame that we were set to deliver out. So the full game will be much more comprehensive in terms of, it's not going to be a hack and smash game. The skills would that you press would also rely on a bit of timing and make sure you get the timing right. And it's kind of like, like League of Legends or Dota, there's only 4 skills. It's supposed to be a simple game. It's 4 skills only, right? But like the timing, how you react to the enemy and stuff like that, you could invade, which is like, it's not like a percentage evasion. It's like you could actually, roll and move and evade attacks and stuff like that. So the gameplay which would be much more compelling than the kind of the mini game that we built out. The graphics wise, it will go up in quality. Right now it's kind of like Fortnite-ish quality, like it's definitely Fortnite is pretty nice, but like definitely want to bump it up to more AAA and higher graphics fidelity. So you'll see eventually. You'll see like how it would end up. But we're doing the kind of the Bible of how the game looks and feels, and make sure that we narrow that down and make sure it looks even better than what we deliver. The mini game for us was kind of like a B, a solid B. But like with more time, obviously we could deliver something a lot better.
Well, I'm excited because if that's your B, I'm waiting for the A or A plus here because that sounds pretty awesome. So, congrats to the team on that, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that more engaging gameplay and the exploring and all that. And speaking of which, I want to get your opinion here on, who do you think your target audience is? Because I know in the report we talked about, hey, there's a builder lane, there's an explorer lane, there's a fighter lane, and I'm thinking of a game like Minecraft, right? Like I can go in there. And I don't really care about the building as much. I want to be the fighter. I want to go out and kill things. Where my wife is like, please turn it to creative mode. Like, I don't want to have anything. There's no monsters. Like, just give me a peaceful mode where I can build stuff. So is there going to be that kind of player in Ascenders in the builder lane? Or the builder and explorer lanes more of kind of a side thing and the fighter is the main target audience?
I mean, the truth is there's actually more archetypes out there. So we just pulled 3 of the main archetypes that are suitable for crypto. When one archetype, like a builder or like a fighter or a killer or a socializer is dominant in game, the game falls out of whack and balance a little bit. So, our goal is to balance it out a little bit. But the core target audience for our game is really, we're targeting obviously the Web3 player gamers. I think those are very passionate players, and but then also we're planning to target normal Web 2 gamers as well. So it's a game that we could, I'm sure like most of your audience have people who don't understand NFTs or cryptos and stuff like that, right? So this is a game where you can invite your friends. They don't have to know about NFTs and stuff like that to play the game. So they can play alongside with you. And a lot of the, like, for example, some part of the game is, and we're borrowing this concept from actually mobile games. You're familiar with some resources in these mobile games. There's usually two sets of resources: the premium resource and the common resource. The premium or premium gems and the common gems. The common gems are kind of given away for free, and sometimes they give you the premium gems, the green gems that you have to buy with money, and then that gives you unlocks like gold chests and stuff like that. So it's there's a non-crypto lane as well and a crypto lane, and then as you play the game along, you get the crypto side of the game as well. So you play, you kill monsters, we drop resources, both crypto and non-crypto for players. And if you're a Web3 player, a Web2 player who doesn't know wallets and stuff, you don't get the crypto side of the resource, and you're kind of losing money. So hopefully that's a kind of a way we could bridge Web2 gamers into Web3. So our audience is quite mass market. So we're hoping to get at least 1 million players to play our game. So it's not like restricted to just Web3.
That's really good to hear, because I think that's where a lot of games have struggled, right? Where it's like, if you're not familiar with crypto already, the barrier of entry to set up a wallet, get your tokens, get your NFTs for gamers, right, is just really complicated. And if they haven't had that experience before, it's like, well, I don't want to come to your Web3 game because I'm just so used to Web2 games and it's simple. So it's good to hear that you guys are, spreading out to give an option to, hey, here's the crypto lane, here's the non-crypto lane, and let us help you maybe bridge the gap. And I'm curious, from your point of view, as you've talked to other gamers or you've pitched this project, what are some of the other things and barriers you see for these Web2 gamers? What are some of the struggles for them to actually come over and start playing Web3 games, whether it's Ascenders or any other game out there?
Yeah, I think definitely getting the wallet is definitely a hard part, right? Being self-custodizing your own assets is definitely not like for everybody. I think there's been like progress in that front. I thought like Coinbase is releasing a wallet where you could just register, log in, and have like they basically have split 3 keys between the people. At Coinbase has one. I think I'm not. Yeah, and then you have one, and then somebody else has one. So like we could have that kind of process where you just register, that's your email and stuff like that, and then you could play and have your own wallet. That's definitely an interesting solution. I think that's the strongest barrier, and also like the ENS addresses. That's more native for people. It's quite normal to have your own login name, whereas like the address you get for Ethereum is kind of difficult for people to approach, and it's just scary being your own bank. I think and people forget the passwords all the time, let alone remembering the seed keys. So I think that's a huge barrier in terms of the infrastructure. But yeah, I think we could overcome it and educate that through the gaming experience, right? I mean, what's underrated is that we could explain what's a wallet, what's a seed key, what's a DEX, all through like story and gameplay through our game. So that's, I think, something interesting that we could play around with.
Yeah, I love that idea of, kind of bringing in the game. I mean, that's kind of what a little bit like DeFi Kingdoms has tried to do, but also like they haven't had the gameplay aspect to it, but they've done a good job kind of gamifying the different language behind crypto and DeFi and trying to get people that are gamers into this space. But I like the idea of doing it through story and through the actual gaming world of something like Ascender. So that's really cool. And speaking of the blockchain and such, I know you guys picked Avalanche for your game. And I think maybe a lot of gamers are more used to things like Wax and Binance Smart Chain, those types of blockchains. And really, I think probably the biggest one on Avalanche, correct me if I'm wrong, is probably Crobata right now. So what was the decision for the team picking a blockchain? Why Avalanche? What's maybe the advantage for you guys there?
Yeah, I think what Avalanche has done really well is I think building some subnets. I think that's a good innovation in the space. Um, the reason why Avalanche is a compelling blockchain choice is because, firstly, yeah, the chain never crashed. So that's definitely,
It's a plus.
that's definitely an edge, definitely a plus among the other blockchains. And ultimately, I think what attracted me is the subnets where you could have your own kind of blockchain, like L2, L1. We still have to find our own validators, but in generally, I think that's the better approach, in my opinion, because if Bitcoin crashes 50%, I don't want the game to be unplayable, right? I mean, the problem with a monolithic chain like Ethereum and all the chains that you see out there um, is that it's a monolithic chain. Everything runs on one blockchain, and that's super important for like high value transactions. Like, for example, if you're doing dexes or trades, money, you want your money to be in the most decentralized place ever, right? So you know running on a most decentralized blockchain makes a lot of sense to you. But when Bitcoin crashes 50%, everything goes down. You don't want the gas price, and people are prioritizing liquidations. They want to try to save the liquidations. They're paying whatever gas that's possible, and that congestion can affect your gameplay. So there are periods. Once a quarter during a year, your game is unplayable. So if you use a monolithic chain, so that's one challenge of using one of these monolithic chains. The second one is probably having your own flexibility to use your own kind of governance token as gas tokens. So you kind of see that with a lot of you kind of want that kind of deflationary a mechanism for your own tokens, and having your tokens as a way to earn supply is a useful one, and that's why everyone's trying to build their own kind of L1 or L2. The problem with building your own L1 and L2 is extremely difficult to build one. I think people underestimate how hard it is to build one. I mean, you see chains not being crashing, restarting. You see kind of blocks being reorganized all the time, and you see bridges being hacked. And as a game company, we don't want to deal any of it, right? I mean, we want the benefits of having your own chain, which is burning your own tokens, but we don't want the hassle, right? And using a subnet from Avalanche kind of makes a lot more sense than us building our own L1 or run it. So that's the long answer to that.
Yeah, I think as a gamer, I think if you're listening to this interview on the podcast or YouTube, I think for most gamers, right, when we look at an NFT game, maybe we don't understand all the blockchain technology that we're talking about layer 1, layer 2, subnets and things like that. So I want to give you a chance here. How would you explain a subnet? And I think really as a gamer, probably the only two things people really care about is one is the safety of their assets, right? We saw Axie with a huge hack, and that's scary, right? Like, what if my token or what if my NFTs are stolen? And then secondly, like, how much am I actually going to have to pay in fees in this game? Because if a gamer's ever tried to go through Ethereum, and it's like, well, unless I'm paying thousands of dollars, it doesn't make sense to do anything on Ethereum because I'm gonna be wasting $20 to $50 every time I want to do something. So for Ascenders with the subnet, what is the explanation? How is it safe, and is it going to be cheap as a gamer?
I mean, yes, it's going to be safe. I mean, definitely it's not going to be as decentralized as we would want. But then there's the kind of like the compromise is that with it being more centralized is that the assets are or the transaction fees are much more safe, and it's determined by our kind of, we have our own flexibility for gas fees. So that's something that some that's been very useful. So yeah, essentially the user experience is just way better. I'll give you one more example about why running everything on one centralized server does not make sense. This would resonate with normal gamers, I think, a little bit. So previously, one of my game developers worked on big Call of Duty titles, and then instead of like sending at launch, they had this bug where instead of sending one request, they would send 6 requests, and then that really DDoSed the PlayStation network, went down because of that. The whole PlayStation network. So if you're playing any other games, it would went down. So after that, they had to change it, and then they had to basically create. Each game would have its own server, so it doesn't affect one game, doesn't affect the other game, and that's essentially are. So like yeah, so basically that's why Subnet makes a lot of sense, especially when we don't need a lot of composability with other, like if you're a DeFi a kind of protocol, then you maybe want composability, but in our game, I think it's the need is less. So AVAX makes more sense in that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that explanation. I think that's really helpful because I think, us in NFT gaming, we're so used to talking in such blockchainy crypto words that, if we actually want to get people into the space from Web 2, I love that. Hey, like here's a Web 2 example of what this means. So thank you for that. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, but ultimately, hopefully they don't have to understand all this. This is just for technology geeks of what's blockchain, why do you need this and all that stuff. Like, hopefully it works seamlessly, and people don't have to think too much about it. And that's our hope.
Yeah, right. That's all that stuff is going on in the background, which is cool because it unlocks new things in games, new technology, ownership of assets, play to earn, all of that. But as we just said, it can get so thick, I guess, some of these terms, and so I like that goal of the team of like, hey, let's just put that into the background. Let's try to get Web2 gamers not to have to deal with that unless they really want to jump into the geeky, maybe nerdy side of all the technology and the background stuff. So I love that goal. And moving on from that, I want to get your thoughts here on, I think there's been a huge debate and discussion around bots in games. I don't know if you've been paying attention to some of the other games and how they're handling bots, because a lot of people are, now that this is real world value, if I can pull out crypto, why not just run 1,000 bots in a game, and each of them, even if they're making $1, I'm still making $1,000 a day, right? So I'm curious to hear, especially from an open world, game that is going to have this player driven based economy. Do you think bots are going to be viable in your game? Do you think, are you guys going to ban them? Are you guys going to do other ways to prevent them? What's your thoughts around that debate?
Botting is always a problem. Hacking is always a problem in games, Web 2 or Web 3. Many games are, even without a financial incentive, there's a lot of people who are kind of gaming games. They want to show the superiority, to be in the ranks, and and they cheat to get there where there is. The truth is, hackers or botters will always exist, and the way we have to do is we have to try our best to combat them. It's a chicken and like a egg kind of problem. Like it's always going to happen. It's like, I guess, more of a cat and mouse game. That's what I was trying to say. It's more of a cat and mouse game all the time. But yeah, I think number one is don't make the game so easy to be botted. So far, we've seen a lot of games that have a very simple gameplay. There's very little skill to play. So it's very easy to bot in that sense. But imagine if your game is as complicated as Dota or League of Legends. You could try botting it. You won't win it. It's just so super sophisticated. Unless you invent an AI like Open AI. And they've created some AIs to beat the game. It's very difficult to bot. But people always will find a way to cheat. And what's beautiful about blockchain is that is that the assets are recorded on our like the blockchain. So it's you haven't seen as much cheating. You see more botting out there, but like as I said before, it's much harder to bought a game that is more complicated by nature. But yeah, that's something we are aware about.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys are taking the stance of like, we're gonna do everything we can to remove them from the game, because I've heard from other games the stance is, hey, we're decentralized, we're not in charge of that. Anyone can play any way they want to.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a like in a way like um it's going to be a challenge. So I mean, as much as possible, we want the game to be decentralized and assets is something you actually own. But if you're combating cheaters a little bit, then you might have to freeze their assets, or if they mine too much, for example, wood in our resources, and it depreciates the value of other players because they also mine wood. But like this cheater got like 20% of the supply. I mean, that's going to be a challenge. But yeah, I mean, um, we could always try to freeze it if we have to. But obviously we don't want to get there. But like it's something that we have in mind. But yeah, I mean, I feel that I think that we should like as much as possible combat these botters and cheaters. I don't think take the stance that it's decentralized. We should let people play the way they want them to play. Um, I, I think that's a very naive approach because people put work into the game, right? You spend like 1,000 hours in these games in a World of Warcraft, and someone botting is getting most of the value of it, and they're not even playing the game. I mean, that's cheating your work value, right? I mean, you put so much hours into the game, so I have the stance that we should combat him as much as possible, and do not allow botting as much as possible. But the bots are like these are it's like in sports is like your opponent is your best teacher. I think Tencent takes that approach. Like that the hackers and the botters are always showing you your weakness, and then you have to respond to them. And you guys keep playing the cat and mouse game.
Yeah, I think players will love that approach because I think that's one of the frustrations is seeing all these games where the bots are getting a lot of the value and players aren't. So I really appreciate that from the team, and I hope that you guys can achieve that and figure out what are those weaknesses so that we can overcome those. Let's talk something a little more fun though. I want to get your thoughts and explanation about the land because I don't know if I'm understanding this right, but based on the report and the research that we did, when I was reading through it, it made it sound like, hey, we're starting off with a smaller world and you get to explore different lands and expand kind of the universe of Ascenders as we go. And, those lands are going to be claimed and then traded as NFTs. So I want to get your thoughts here. Does that mean players are owning the land? Is the team selling the land as it's explored? How does that all work?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a land sale that we were planning to do. Land is definitely a delicate subject, just because it's um, the reason why is because there's a lot of utility to the land, and then the problem with there's going to be like I come from a place from Hong Kong, and it has the most expensive real estate in the world, and a lot of people are feeling the younger generations are feeling that they don't have an opportunity and to own that real estate because it's so expensive. There's no place you feel like you own, and that's driven the younger generations out of the place, in my opinion. And you kind of see this repeated through many like countries and cities. So that's the problem with having land, and the land owners, of course, wants the price to go up only, and but then the problem is that the younger generations don't have an opportunity to get a shot. So there's a balancing act that needs to be done. So in a virtual world, the balance is between the landowners who bought the lands from the land sale or invested time and money into it, whether buying it from us or buying it from other players. But at the same time, if the game's launched for like 2-3 years, you want new players to keep coming in, and you want them to feel like that they own a piece of the world. So that's the balancing act, because if you don't have new players coming in to play the game is dead, and therefore you can't sustain any kind of land prices. So in the long term, it's much better. It's much better for everyone that like prices move for lands that has strong utility to go up, but not too much, or go up, but there's always new areas for them to acquire through gameplay. So we have a land sale that it's up and coming. But those lands are more centered and more centered in the world where it's more valuable because of its location, and it's more valuable because of the resource that you get there is much more consistent. Our output is consistent, and you kind of the value is there. And then we have another way for people to own land in the game, which is the battle for land concept. So we run tournaments, we run competitions, and then from winning that tournament competition, they get land. They still have to buy it, I think, for a small price, or we get it for free. But so that's a more of a there's a whale place to buy land by being a whale using money. But then there's a skill-based approach to acquiring land. So if you're a 15-year-old kid and you're playing this game, there's an avenue for you to be a landowner. But those lands are more out in the frontier. They're more inconsistent in resources. The output's inconsistent, and they're more further away from the center. So that's the balancing act. But then there are more some certain very rare resources are only found in the frontier lands. They're not available from the lands that are bought. So some of the whales want those lands as well, right? Those lands are rare. Those resources are super rare. So you get the kind of if you battle for these lands, there's a chance of getting really lucky. It's like pulling a ultra rare in these NFT mints for you to land on a land that has super rare resources, and then the value is naturally 10x the price that you minted it for, or like a 50x or something like that. So that kind of creates the interest in going out and battling there, because opening Pokemon cards, ooh, what am I gonna get? It's gonna get shiny Charizard, hopefully. But yeah, that's the funny part of it. So it's a balancing act, and people don't speak about it as much, about balancing between the people paid and invested in lands and the balance of having new players come in to revitalize the game through time. Hopefully that explains it a little bit better.
Yeah, it's a really interesting connection. Even going back to what you said in the beginning there, that I don't know if you came up with this yourself or something, but I've never heard that connection of, hey, younger generations, we're struggling, right, to find housing, to find land, because everything is so dang expensive and inflating. Even in my area in the Northwest here in America, it's the past couple of years, things have almost doubled in price. So it's a really interesting thing to think through. Hey, the younger generations feel like they don't have an opportunity in the real world. So now they're all going to these NFTs, going to games to get land, even if it's not in the real world. And so I love that you guys are thinking through that. How do you give opportunities both to the whales to hold that value and to players that maybe don't have, some of these games are charging upwards of tens of thousands of dollars, right, for land. And that's still maybe out of the reach of some of the younger generation. So yeah, I just love that you're thinking about that and giving both opportunities. And I'm sure that's maybe tougher to balance, but I like that you guys are trying and attempting that.
Yeah, I mean, it's always trying to balance the interest groups, and I think it's quite natural, I guess, from our Asian perspective. Asian loves land, and I think what Singapore has really done really well. Lee Kuan Yew has said when they founded the Singapore country was that it's a country of immigrants, and if people don't have a place to call home, they will never fight for the country in case of war. So Singapore's policy's always been trying to give if you're a Singapore citizen, an opportunity to have housing that is heavily subsidized, which is really a smart thing to do. Kind of in a way, if people are disheartened, people from I think I think I played a lot of games when I was the ages of 10 to 20. many hours in playing games. If you don't have a opportunity for them to become like landlords in these virtual worlds, I mean, why would they play the game? And these people will eventually become like a productive people in the society and will eventually make more income. So it's something that you kind of see a lot with like the retroactive like the old Gen 1 Pokemon card packs. Like these people grew up playing those Pokemon cards and collected them, and then now that they have their own income and stuff like that, these cards are highly sought after and prices are ridiculously high. But like you want them to be a part of the game universe, and you don't want them to be like they have to feel part of it, part of this family, and they can join that family, and there's opportunity to be a owner. So yeah, so basically it's balancing these things.
Well, I hope to be one of those landowners. So if you have any tournament tips for me when the time comes, let me know. That
I'm
sounds
sure you're
awesome.
part of the whale group, not the
I
the
don't
up
know
and
about
coming
that.
group. But like you'd
No.
buy virtual lands as well. So
Oh man. Well, we'll see. That sounds exciting though, for sure. And kind of as we wrap up, I just want to give you an opportunity here. I know other people have come to me here at Balthazar and even on my own personal channel with new and upcoming open world games or MMOs. It seems like that's kind of more of a trend. Obviously, a lot of those games are going to take a long time to develop, as you probably well know. But I want to hear from you. What do you think is going to set Ascenders apart from these other projects that are maybe somewhat similar in the nature of the game?
I think definitely to one thing that really sets us apart is our team. I probably the I mean, our team has been very experienced in building different types of games out there. So Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, GTA. I mean, these are the games that I grew up playing with, and these are the and the people working with us are director level positions. So I mean, there's only one person above them. It's just the studio head. So these are people who set the creative decisions in making these big AAA games. So we definitely have the experience to build it out. Definitely, I mean, there are other games that are also kind of building MMOs and stuff like that. Some of them are just taking an existing Web2 game and then changing it a little bit, and then pushing out Web3. I mean, I guess it's not the dirty laundry, but like everybody knows that a lot of these games are reskins of previous games. We are not doing that. We're building this game from the ground up. We are thinking from a grounds up principles of what makes a good Web3 games. And we're building that all into our senders. So like, for example, a lot of people ask about like, for example, in our game, we have our NFT marketplace, we have a DEX or AMM, and then we have like an in-game bank as well. So a lot of people Web2 coming in, they don't understand what Web3 is, they don't understand what AMM is, they don't understand stuff would learn through our game playing it. And it's a natural part of the game. It's like a natural extension part of the game. We're not enforcing it into the game. So for example, if a racing game has an AMM, it's like doesn't that really make sense too much? Or like for example, I'll use a racing game again. If a racing game has a land economy, it's like, okay, how does that work really? I think in my opinion, there are only a few game genres that work well with Web3. I think people underappreciate that a little bit. Even famous VC investors as well. I think, and I'll just state my thesis for Web3 gaming a little bit here that I like to cover. I think game genres that are continuous are the ones that do the most well. And what I mean by that is they're games that restart every time you play. So FPS is one of them, Dota is one of them, or mobile game is one of them. Maybe tower defense is one of them. So those games, it's very hard for you to invest money into NFTs or items because your advantage is restart every time you play. So it's limited money you can put into it. So like games like collectibles, like Pokemon, like card games, these or action RPG or MMOs work really well because you want to collect these cards, or you want to collect these armors and swords and items that do very well. I think it's number one. Number two is I think it has to have a very deep economy. So SLP being one of the currencies, like the only currency there is kind of boring. The game has to have a lot of different type of resources, in my opinion, a lot of different items. Just for example, if you're doing a shooter game, I mean, how many guns do you have? Like 20. Whereas if you look at WoW, I mean, they have 37K items, right? I mean, and then that's where people could trade and items all the time. I think that's what's natively Web3. So those are my kind of like core thesis of what makes a good Web3 game. I think their game is also making skins. They're selling like NFTs as skins. One of people working Call of Duty is working with us. I mean, it's super hard. He built one of the kind of the few free to play Call of Duty games. Super hard to monetize. I mean, once if you like M4 AK and you buy one skin or you buy a few skins and then you stick with it, you don't really change your skins very much. So these, if your NFT game is or Web3 game is very skin, like it's skin deep, as in like it's just very surface area. You're using NFT in a very easy way. It's not natively Web3, and that won't do very well. Skins is probably like if you look at League of Legends, it's probably one of the most under monetized games out there. For the amount of hours people spend on it, I mean, they spend maybe like $5, $10. I mean, maybe they spent maybe like $20, $30, and they spent at least like thousands of hours into it. Very under monetized. To do that model successfully for League of Legends, I mean, it's been ongoing for 10 years. It's one of the most popular games out there, and if you believe your Web3 game selling skins is going to be the top 20, maybe 50 games out there in the world, then you have a real shot of monetizing NFT games with just a skin element to it. It's super difficult to do. I don't think people appreciate that enough. It's so I would stick with the genres, this framework and thinking through Web3 games. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely seems like MMOs are just naturally fit for a thing like NFTs and play to earn and currencies and trading in big marketplaces, like you're saying. I think one thing that maybe people push back on for this type of genre is that, this game, it's a crypto game, it's a play to earn game, so it just means it's going to be pay to win, because now anyone can come in here and just throw $3,000 at the game and have the best sword in the game, or they can go buy a level 50 character where I had to grind for 500 hours before I got there. And so I'm curious, do you hear that pushback? Do you have any concerns about that, or is that just part of the play to earn space and that's fine?
In my opinion, this sounds really harsh. I mean, life is pay to win. I mean, you could send your son and daughters to Harvard if you donate a building to them. So so it's kind of hard in that sense. I mean, and that this is always happening in the past as well. I mean, if you want a challenger account in League of Legends, you'd buy it. And if you want so I mean, there's always that case, and it's just underneath the surface. It's not approved of, and just Web3 is just a more honest approach. You're just surfacing it out. In my opinion, it's probably like Web3 games is probably the kind of like one of the new business models for games. I think games have been under monetized for a while, in my opinion. I mean, there's a few business models out there, right? I mean, there's number one, is you sell per copy. I mean, $60 is probably in the upper range of a game, and probably the best franchise out there was Call of Duty. I mean, they pump that one Call of Duty every year, and you buy that every single year. That's one way to, that's one business model. The second business model is probably like subscription fees. I mean, like a World of Warcraft pulled it off. Kind of Final Fantasy 14 pulled it off a little bit, but like very little few games really pulled off the subscription model. And then you have the free to play games, which is also a bit pay to win kind of game. And really kind of Web3 hopefully is a game that's free, but then lets people use transaction fees. In my opinion, our game is really hoping people transact a lot, and then we taking fees from each transaction, and that funds future DLC expansion packs. And those are provided for free, of course, as well as. So that's how we've been seeing it. But yeah, in general, I believe that mobile games is probably the most popular game out there. It's free. It's pay to win. It's at the same time as well. So I don't see that kind of problem out there. I think as long as people are entertained, that's the most important part. People are having fun. Some people have different time values for money. So someone's a billionaire, doesn't want to grind for this kind of weapon, so they pay for it. I mean, that's what they want to do. So that's fine. Let's allow it. And some people don't have that money, and they have all they have is time, so they could grind for that weapon and sell it for somebody else. And have a virtual economy going on. So yeah, it's like a representative of real life a little bit. So I don't see a problem with it, to be honest. So yeah, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense what you're saying. Well, Jack, thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. This has been really insightful to Ascenders and really the whole NFT gaming industry and what it's like to be a CEO at one of these games. So thank you for your time. Anything as we wrap up you want to shout out, or if you want to recommend pushing people to a certain place to join the community or check out Ascenders, what would you point them to?
Yeah, check out our Twitter, follow our Twitter, join our Discord, and play our mini game. And that's a representative of what's to come in the future. But like as I said before, I'm expecting the team to deliver something way better than what we've delivered so far. And yeah, we'll have our white paper release soon, and then also. And yeah, maybe we could have a time to talk a little bit about that once we release it a little bit. So that's something interesting. We have some new ideas there as well. So that's something awesome that you haven't seen out there in the industry. It's like grounds up principle, first principle thinking about what makes good tokenomics and how do we balance the economy and SLP, and how do you deal with the dual token inflation issue. And like we thought a lot about that, but we could talk about that next time.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, here at Balthazar, as you know, we're very excited for Ascenders, so I'm sure we'll keep tracking things as you guys go. Maybe do some updated research and updated gameplay testing. So just let us know anytime you got some stuff to talk about, and I'm sure we'll take a look.
Cool. Nice talking to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jack, and thanks for everyone for watching.
Thank you. See ya.
Well, thank you, Jack, again for taking the time to interview. I hope everyone listening here really enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy this interview and you haven't read through our research report yet, then I would go recommend that or watch the video of our recap. You can also jump over to Balthazar's website to check out many more NFT games, as well as learn about our upcoming launchpad and other resources. Also, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, go ahead and leave us a review. For now, take care, everyone. Salamat, gracias, and thank you for tuning in.